Kendra here, DNRT Development and Outreach Specialist. Today I am at the Slocum's River Reserve and we're going to be looking for a few different wild edibles. So these are things that are found in nature that you can either eat or use medicinally. So let's go on and take a hike. Alright, so I just want to go over some edible etiquette before we get started identifying edibles. If you're out in the woods and you see something and you're uncertain if it's a wild edible, do not eat it. We don't want to take any risks. There are plants that you really shouldn't be eating. So make sure that you have a guidebook or you do research on the internet or you talk with somebody who knows their edibles well. It's very important that you stay safe when you're out foraging. 2, do not forage any wild edibles unless you have the property owner's permission. Do not come out to a DNRT property and remove vegetation. Do not go into your neighbor's yard and start pulling up his plants. Make sure you have permission. It's also important because sometimes you don't know the land management practices of a particular area. So somebody might be applying herbicide or other chemicals to these plants that you're about to harvest. So that would be really bad. So always make sure that you have permission. Alright, so this plant here is oxeye daisy. It does have a lookalike which you cannot eat. The way to differentiate it is this is your classic he loves me not flower. So the petals are large enough that you could easily pull one off at a time. So the oxeye daisy, you can drink it as a tea. It can actually be relaxing for the bronchioles. You can also eat the flowers in a salad, or another way people like to eat it is tempura, battered and fried. So that might take away some of the nutritional benefits of the daisy, but it is an interesting and fun way to eat flowers. So this plant here is called JEWELWEED, or touch me not. So this is a really cool medicinal plant. It often grows next to poison ivy and stinging nettle, and it can be very soothing if you get poison ivy or stinging nettle on you. So basically you can take the leaves and crush them up and apply them to your rash, and it's going to help soothe. And this one can be identified. It has these kind of diamond-shaped leaves. They have little ridges on them, and later in the season they will get an orange flower. And they tend to grow in shady spots like this, and as you can see, there's quite a big patch right here behind me. So this large expanse here is all mugwort. So mugwort is invasive, it takes over really fast, it's really bad in that sense. But it's great as a wild edible. So you can identify it by the leaves. The bottom are almost a silvery color, and they get pretty tall and kind of fluffy almost. But mugwort's super fragrant. It can be dried up and used as a spice on anything you're cooking. It's very fragrant, very delicious. It also, it's being studied as treatments for anxiety and depression and other mental health disorders. So that's really cool. And it's also interesting, it is hallucinogenic, meaning that if you consume mugwort as a tea, or you can even like smoke this as an herb, if you consume it before bedtime in either of those ways, it can stimulate lucid dreams, which is basically when you're able to like be asleep but control your dreams. I've never tried it, but allegedly that is something that mugwort can do. So yeah, and if you have this in your yard, it's very easy to find because it does often end up growing in big patches, and the underside of the leaves is a dead giveaway that it is mugwort. So these lovely giant leaves we have here are burdock. You can see they can get massive. This could be used as an umbrella. So burdock is the plant when you're going for a hike in the woods and you end up with burrs all over your shoes. It comes from this guy here. So burdock is actually a highly valued food item in Asian cuisine. So the root is harvested and eaten. So you can do that with it. You also can eat the stalks, and the leaves. So pretty much the entire plant is edible. It's a biennial, so you do want to harvest it in its first year, and you want to harvest it early in the season, like late May, early June, and that's before any sort of like flowers or birds or anything like that forms. But it stands out. You're not going to miss burdock when you're walking in the woods. And just looking here, this is a great patch. We also have some jewelweed, which we had just seen in another area. This is the burdock as it gets larger. It kind of just springs out from this center stalk here and just keeps branching off. And then this right here is what I had mentioned earlier, is the look-alike for oxeye daisy. So as you can see, it is not the he loves me not. You could not easily pull off one petal at a time, so do not eat this. Oh, and look, here's some mugwort. So this is a patch full of edibles. Okay, so another tasty edible we have here is garlic mustard. So that's this plant here. This is probably a little bit past the time you'd want to harvest it. You do want to harvest it when it's kind of young. This is incredibly invasive. When it produces seeds, one plant can produce up to about 7,000 seeds. It's not likely to produce that much, but it can. Generally up to 600 though per one plant, so it spreads like wildfire. So if you see it, pull up the whole plant so it doesn't keep spreading and eat it. So you can see the leaves here, they're kind of like a heart shape, and if you smell them, they kind of have like a little bit of a garlicky scent to them. So one of the best ways to eat this is as a pesto. So instead of using basil, you can make a garlic mustard pesto, and it's very flavorful. It's definitely different than your traditional basil pesto, but it is a great way to eat this plant up. And you can also just use it as a lot of these wild edibles, just sauteed up and as, you know, just like a spinach substitute, just if you want a dark leafy green as a side dish. So, yeah, garlic mustard.